Hello and welcome to the Magic of Podcast with Paul Rothman. I'm super excited today because I've got a fabulous actor who really traverses all the different areas of acting, and from theatre to musical to film to television, and is exactly what I am inspired by when I think of where I'd want to be as an actor. And it is the wonderful Douglas Hodge. Hello. Douglas. Hey, how you doing?
Hello. Very well. I'm in my third round of quarantine, so I'm very pleased to speak to a human being, even remotely. Yes, sort of managing my mania.
So you're back at, where are you, in London?
Yeah, I was in Canada shooting Lost in Space, and Canada's very strict, very strict on quarantine. You quarantine for 2 weeks, can't leave your hotel room. The sort of, the foyer staff are watching you like the Stasi.
Oh my God.
You have to prove to the government where you're going to order in your food from. So yeah, by about day 10, I was ready to throw myself off the balcony there, and then I shot there. I went to New York and had to voluntarily quarantine, which is what happens when you get to New York. So it's like, if we really advise that you stay in, and of course nobody is behaving. But New York is managing to keep the numbers down a bit. And then I flew directly to England, and here I am in a friend's apartment, quarantining, this time for 5 days, because I have exemption now to film. So I'm filming The Great, second series of The Great, and apparently you can quarantine for 5 days as long as you test every 3 days. And I tested each time before I flew. In fact, I've tested every day almost the last 3 weeks. But so yeah, I'll have a test tomorrow, and then every 3 days I test, and then everyone in my bubble tests, and on we go, and hopefully manage to film. And if anyone tests positive, then we shut down. So I'm here, yeah, filming until just before Christmas. Then we have to have an extra long hiatus for Christmas because we need another 2 weeks quarantine before we start again. So mainly I'm quarantining and fitting in a little bit of acting in between then.
Wow, hey, look, at least you're actually working.
I am quarantine. I am, yes, and haven't for it's nearly 8 months, I should think. So yeah, then my whole life is about to fall around me, so I'm very, very grateful to be earning some money, frankly.
Yeah.
Alone working.
So is home New York now?
It is, yes. I'm married to a New Yorker.
Right.
She came and, well, we lived in England for a while, but she's a wigmaker, and she really, her business is very sort of hands-on. It's very about her being in the room with the sort of superstars she makes wigs for. So really her business couldn't function while we were living in London. It's all set up in New York. So, and I can live anywhere really. So we went to live there amongst the bombs and the Trumps and the riots and the COVID.
That's easy. Did you, there's a couple of things that brought up. So are you a citizen of the United States?
No one never will be. I'm an English citizen and always will be until I do my last Gilbert and Sullivan offer.
Oh, right.
I hold a green card. So I pay taxes to America and taxes to the UK, but which is a bit stupid, but I remain fervently English, and the longer I'm in New York, the more English I seem to become.
Yes, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
The only reason I think I would go I'm on the green card, and the citizenship route is the real advantage is it means you can leave America.
Yes. Yeah.
It's an irony, you get your citizenship, which means you can just leave because you're already stuck paying the taxes forever.
No, that's true. And you have to come back every, whatever, 40 days or whatever it is. I've never quite worked out what it is, but yeah. Yes, I suppose the worldwide taxes is something only America does. It's a pretty boring subject, but yeah, I pay 53% tax. my salary.
Oh my God!
20% holding in the country. I mean, and then America's tax.
So
you do pay for the privilege. There's no doubt about it. But I am strongly want to be an Englishman and pay for the NHS and support all that. So especially at the moment, it's troubling times.
Moving on to something creative and joyous. I've been watching a few things. I knew of you through Cage Aux Folles and Willy Wonka. But I'd also seen you in loads of things. I mean, you went to RADA. Did you jump straight into TV?
No, I didn't. In fact, I was at this wonderful term at RADA. There was Ken Branagh and John Sessions, God bless him, was just passed away this week. And
was he in The Great? Did I just see him in The Great?
He was, yeah.
I just watched that episode.
I hadn't seen him for about 5 years, and he turned up and was given the most impossible Russian name to say, like Grigoror Gororgovich, and he just couldn't say it. And everyone just became absolutely. He's a very, very, very funny person anyway. But so it was sort of startling that he's suddenly gone, and broke my heart really. But I knew him when at RADA he did these sort of free-form, improvised one-man shows off the cuff that would go on and on and on and on, and extraordinary mimic and extraordinary mind. Just sort of terrifying, and a very fragile person too. So I think this whole sort of lockdown thing didn't suit him. Very sociable, very sort of overthinking person. But yes, so I was at RADA, and then when I left RADA, I really had sort of given up, decided to not act at all, and I was going to direct. And I got a job directing, and I'd been at the National Youth Theatre, which is sort of how I became an actor. And then I went there to direct, and then I did something very old-fashioned, really. I was offered all these stonking great Shakespearean classical roles all around the regional theatres of England. So off I went and played Hamlet at Bolton and Coriolanus and Romeo and Juliet. I did 3 times at Birmingham, Nottingham Playhouse, York. And then it sort of dawned on me, I didn't have an agent. I was just doing these endless, massive roles and loving every minute of it. But I was sort of eating my cornflakes in the evening and watching the rest of my term at RADA all becoming immensely wealthy and famous. So no, I didn't do any television until about 10 years into my career. And then I did a thing called Capital City. I'd been offered Hamlet with Lyubimov's Hamlet at the Old Vic. And then they offered me Capital City. And my partner at the time said, you've got to be on television. You've got to, everyone goes, you must do some television. So I did that. And it was fantastic fun. And sort of rather successful, I suppose. We only did 2 series of it, and then since then I've really just looped between. While I'm in one, I'm always desperate to do the other.
I just peeked that credit there, just as you were saying it. Was Jason Isaacs in that?
Yes,
wow.
He was.
Yeah,
Jason Isaacs. Yes,
I met Jason many years ago, and it was a production by Carl Francis. It was a show called Civvies. And I was a runner. It was like, I must have been about 19 or 18 or something. And he came to audition. We were doing some other thing, and he was auditioning for Civvies, and Jason Isaacs walks in. And he does his audition, and we're all helping, I don't know, doing all the behind-the-scenes stuff. And I remember Jason, I think he had a scar. He said he had an accident, and he came in and he was all kind of geezery, and he was all like this, which is, if he's not like that at all.
No, he was in character.
He was
clearly.
in character, and he gave it all this, and he's like, yeah, I'll be over here, yeah, all right, I'll do that, and he did his audition, and there was a few other guys, and we all gave him marks out of 10. And the other guys, it was a 6, 7, and Jason was like, we were like 10. 10, he's amazing, get him in. So he got the gig. It wasn't down to me, obviously, well, maybe it was. But I saw him, I was doing an extra job, years later, and I told him the story, expecting him to go, all right, Paul, yeah, whatever. And he went, "Oh, really? Oh, yes. No, oh, yes, I came in character." And he said that Carl Francis, on the first day of shooting, said something to him. And he went, "Yes, I'll do it like that." And he went, "You bastard. If I'd known you were that accent, I probably wouldn't have hired you."
No, well, I'm sure he's right. And also he's brilliant at voices, Jason. At that time, he was desperate to sort of get into voiceover work, and his answer phone message was about 3 different people. So, it'd be like, "Yes, as Jason here, how would you?" And then he'd go through all these different impersonations. He was, he's fiery guy too. On our set, he was known as Jason in the Arguments.
What, slightly awkward or
no, just like very, very
opinionated,
exact about what he wanted to do. So if you had a director who was kind of winging it, he would be like, wait, this isn't and everyone would go, "Wow, here we go." And he was unafraid to take anyone on in that way, which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
But I mean, of course, he's gone on to have a wonderful career, and I haven't seen him for a long time. But yeah.
So what happened after? What happened after that? You were saying. So you did that.
I did Capital City, and yes, and then I stayed in television. And I remember reading something about it. Said something about the ubiquitous Douglas Hodge, and I thought, "Oh God, that's not good." And I was in a thing called Fatal Inversion, Anglo-Saxon Attitudes, Middlemarch, and did this sort of stream of television. And then really I plunged into Pinterland, and I did 10 years, more or less exclusively, of working with Harold Pinter. And probably to the detriment of my career, actually. I mean, I just worked, I would do, I don't know, first of all, we did No Man's Land with him in it. And we did that in the West End, the 4 of us. We all shared a dressing room, and I was utterly enamored. Greatest living writer, I think, and extraordinary person, too. And then he offered me, we wrote Moonlight during that. So I then did Moonlight, and then I did Betrayal at the National, and then The Lover and The Collection. And then I made a film of Victoria Station. And I just, every kind of month, we'd finish a job, and he'd go, "Look, Doug, I want you to come over and do another. I've got a bloody great thing I'm doing." And I go, "Oh Christ, okay, yeah, I'll be there, I'll do it." So then I would be locked into doing Betrayal or something like that at the National for 6 months, and I really worked for 10 years with him in a lot of the plays, and on film, and directing his plays. In fact, just 2 years ago, directed Old Times on Broadway, which was all part of that sort of legacy, really. And then after that 10 years, there was a sort of moment when I went, I can't do your next, I can't. It's quite a toxic world to be in, Harold's world. It's quite sort of heterosexual, violent sort of, he used to say, I can take my glasses off faster than anyone. And meaning he could just fight at the drop of a hat. And so it was anyway. I then was offered Guys and Dolls, the musical, to play Nathan Detroit, and I thought, wow, fantastic. I'd love to do something like that. It was Ewan McGregor, Jane Krakowski, Jenna Russell, wonderful cast. Michael Grandage directing, so it was a Donmar production. And Harold went, look. Musicals are just a construct. And I went, "Oh, okay." But anyway, and I did that, and I sort of prized myself away from that world, and then sort of was in the musical theatre world for a while. In fact, then after that, I stayed at the Donmar and became associate director at the Donmar. So I was directing then a lot, and then I sort of did Lacage, I suppose, and Lacage went to New York, and then Willy Wonka and the rest of it.
With Pinter, just going back to Pinter, Old Times, doesn't that have the monologue, something about where he was in the cinema? It was an old flea pit, and he likes her breasts, and
yes,
I love that. It's just the best. I always remember that monologue.
I always remember flea pit breasts monologue. Yes, it does. It's an extraordinary sort of dream play, really. You never quite know if any of them are alive or living or dead or ghosts, and it's sort of peopled by many people. But just these 3, it was Clive Owen, Kelly Riley and Eve Best were the cast. So yeah, it was great fun.
Did he have a? I mean, did you question him about how he constructed these things and the broader picture of what they were? Things like that. I mean, I remember at school watching The Dumb Waiter and loving it, and just and pre talking to you, I was looking up Old Times and a few of the things, and there was one with what's his name? Gosh, he passed away. Wonderful actor who played the baddie in Die Hard, obviously. Alan Rickman.
Yes,
and
that's right.
Just the timing of it is interesting. The language.
Yeah, he had a sort of untrammeled access to his subconscious. He never changed a word once he'd written it, and he didn't really. He wrote quickly, and he was sort of in touch with his. He didn't get in the way of himself in any shape or form. The plays really, when he discussed them, they were like, I mean, the first play he wrote, The Room, I think he was on a bus, top of a double-decker bus going through London, and he looked in one of those windows across that I can see from here, and there was a man sort of leaning over another man, and it stayed with him, this little tiny, powerful, claustrophobic image, and he wrote The Room. He just sort of extrapolated what that person would be saying to the other, and then followed wherever it went. He was living in a house in Chiswick when he was a young actor. Walked down the stairs, and there was a door halfway open, and some sort of homeless person had been invited in by the guy who lived in the property, who ran the property, and they were sort of rummaging through bags, and he wrote The Caretaker. So he had these. It is about these small claustrophobic power plays of worlds, and once he'd written them, he wouldn't change them at all. And just phenomenal certainty that he had. And funnily enough, when I directed Old Times, I had this idea that they would be forever playing the play, so that they would, even when the audience had gone, it would just go on and on and on again. And so the set that we designed was this revolving set that moved at the speed of a clock. So, of course, you couldn't see it as you sat in the theatre, but definitely after 20 minutes, the sofa now had its back to you. And when the evening started, it was facing you. And slowly, the set just moved around, which is a pretty fabulous idea, I think. And the actors just sort of rearranged themselves in this room as it was forever revolving, you see. And so I thought it would be great if we finished the play and they just start to say the beginning of the play again, and then we just bring in the Iron Curtain, and the audience are like, oh my God, those poor bastards are locked in that purgatory forever in that world, We just happened to glimpse them for a bit. So I wrote to Lady Antonia, who is a great friend, really, from all that time that, worked with Harold, and said, listen, I just got this fantastic, brilliant idea. It's got the revolve, and I wonder if they could just say the first. And she said, absolutely not. I promised him on his deathbed that you can't change a single word. And I went, no, I know that, but we're not changing a word. We're just doing the play again. And she went, no, that would make the play as if it has those 3 lines at the beginning, at the end as well, and you're adding something to it. And I went, well, I am, but they could do the play twice, for example, but we choose to close the curtain down and not see them. Anyway, she absolutely wouldn't let me change a single piece of punctuation or digit, which is how the whole estate is with Harold's work. But that thing about ghosts, though, there was a great story that he told me where he was awarded something like the Great Literary Prize in somewhere like Hungary. I don't know the exact country. I can't remember. It was one of those kind of countries, and he and Antonia flew over, and they were putting on a special production of one of his plays, and at the end of it he was going to be invited to the stage, and the Prime Minister was going to give him the Man of Letters award. And they sat down, and I think about 10 people came on stage and started talking, and he went, this is not my play, they've got the wrong man. And then a band came on and was playing, and if you know Pinter's world, there's never more than about 5 people, normally 3. They're always in sort of one location, and there certainly isn't any music. And anyway, this band violinist came on, and then they were talking in Hungarian or whatever. And then he said to Antonio, "It's Tom fucking Stoppard. It's Tom. It's not me." And so she said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And he went, "You can't pretend to be Tom Stoppard and go and get the award." And he went, I don't know. And they got through and got to the interval, and they just sort of had this drink in this hospitality room, went back, and then it dawned on him just before the play finished that it was actually the homecoming. And it was a sort of interpretive version where each character had their own id and ego and ghost surrounding them, and the parts had been cut up into different characters that spoke all these different ideas in their mind. So it was people with many people, and folk singers came on and played all this music. Anyway, by the end, he'd realised it was yet another interpretation of one of his plays that he didn't recognise at all, and then went and accepted the award.
But so he, in his life, was seeing interpretations of his work, but in his death, it's not allowed.
Well, yeah, I think he fought strenuously. As long as you stick to the exact text, you could do all the plays completely naked or whatever. I mean, yeah, I think I remember there was a production of The Lover that was two men completely naked throughout the whole play, and he went, I don't. No, don't ask me why. But as long as you get the text, you're allowed to interpret. Same as Shakespeare, really. You can't really write an extra Shakespeare speech to change the story, but you can set Shakespeare in Trump's America, or in the Congo or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, yeah. It's and like Sondheim as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. Sondheim's even more precious about changing anything.
The comma is but that's interesting. So in Sondheim you've got that sort of. I mean, I did I didn't do company. I did Follies at drama school.
Right.
And I was buddy in Follies back then. It was the best thing I've, funnily enough, the best part.
I was Bobby in Follies.
Say again?
Yeah. I thought you were going to say I was Bobby
in Follies.
Yeah.
You were like, who is this guy? But it actually had it was the most exciting thing I've ever done in a lot of ways, just because it was so about the language. It was so about the timing. Every song, when you learned it, you realized why there was a comma there and why he put a full stop and why there was the craftsmanship in that. And in Pinter you get that. And it was intriguing. I saw a production, and I can never remember which Pinter I saw. It was a few years ago in the West End, and it was... Oh God! I think it was like in a beachside town where this guy arrives.
Homecoming. Yeah.
Homecoming, and you can't really work out what's going on. They're after him. I think these other guys are after him, and but there's this interesting thing, and again, watching the clips of old times, it made me think of like West Wing. In the speed of thought of language, there's a kind of sense sometimes that it's not necessarily how we actually speak to each other. Sometimes we talk, we compute, we think, and then we respond. You're almost responding on the breath or on the beat. Is that true? Is that something that
I mean, I think Harold's thing was that language was simply a smokescreen, that he had a group of friends from the age of 16, and I remember they all came in, and he said, none of us, we always say the opposite of what we think, in that English way, so that he said, if they come to see a play, they go, well, that was shit, and of course we'd all know as English people that was a great compliment, but they were too embarrassed to say, you were incredible. You were just marvelous. I loved everything about it. So for him, language was always a sort of subterfuge of what you were thinking. Never actually it was just as polite as you could have this sort of tumultuous, murderous instincts going on underneath, and you would be as polite as possible and go, come in. And that would be your one line, but, and then it would be terrifying. So he always, and I honestly think as well that sort of after the Second World War, and really the two wars really, the whole business of saying what you meant and having your heart on your sleeve and telling someone you loved them and speaking openly about what you felt disappeared, and language fractured and became, distrusted. And if you look at Beckett's, if you look at the poetry of the time, if you look at the painting of the time, the whole modes of communication became much more distorted. And Harold really had a phenomenal ear for that. So almost nobody says what they mean. And so there is this sort of wellspring of feeling that's going on underneath the whole play that's actually what the play's about. And then what you hear them say is just the tip of an iceberg. And that's, definitely, it's interesting what you say about people speaking what they feel. I had a tremendous sort of time, probably 10, 15 years ago, when everything I was acting, I just felt faults with. And really, I always felt that if I was on film or in theatre, that I never actually in real life responded at the speed that I was asked to respond in a play. So someone would say, your wife's dead. And you'd go, or whatever. You'd have a massive speech, especially in Shakespeare. The Fulvia, thy wife is dead, and then Antony has to sort of go, boom into this huge thing. And my experience of anything, even people who made me angry, was, I'd be driving back about an hour later and have a sort of conversation with myself about it, and maybe a year later I'd get up the nerve to say something about it, and maybe 6 years later I'd realize I'd been in the wrong relationship or something like that. So that and when I did Betrayal, it was the first time I felt that had been allowed, because Betrayal goes backwards over a series of years. You are able to play, someone gives you a piece of information, says, I'm having an affair, I don't love you anymore. And you go, okay, well, shall I get the drinks? And you don't have any language that's able to cope with the enormous shock and upset that you have. And then in the next scene, it's a year later, and you can see the person going, well, shall I get the drinks or whatever? And they've had time to feel all those things and to, so you were able to play and act at a real speed. And it almost never happens, most, even on film or everything, they have to see you respond to the information you're given. Otherwise it's not dramatic. Mm-hmm. And Harold managed magnificently to understand that. And so it seemed, even though it is, as you say, very musical and stylized almost, it seems truer to me than a lot of writing.
But he's developing at the same time as a sort of kitchen sink drama and the beginning of soaps as well.
Yeah, and that sort of gritty realism, and yes, exactly.
And that sort of northern, although his stuff isn't that kind of northern.
No, his is
reality.
East End comedy.
It's East End comedy, very gangstery.
Yeah. Son of a Jewish tailor, only son. Lived in the East End, went to grammar school, called himself David Barron when he was an actor, because I think he thought, it didn't sound too Jewish and I sound like a, and then was writing these plays as he wasn't a very good actor, I don't think. He was a slightly wooden sort of actor. And as he was on tour, he started to write these awful plays about, as you said, someone at a beach or in a room or in a bedsit or whatever, and then you had the whole, and off it came.
Did he? I always heard the rumor that he'd like a bottle of wine and he'd have one in the interval and then the beginning and at the end.
Oh my goodness, non-stop, yeah. when you were rehearsing, he had a fridge in the room with white wine in, and about 11 o'clock he'd go, tip the wine. And when we did No Man's Land, we were all in the same dressing room together. He always had a couple of glasses of champagne before he went on stage. Every night, yeah. And I remember saying, how do you do that? Are you worried? And he went, when you see me, forget my lines, and I'll stop drinking my champagne. He was terrifying man. But he did like it.
It's interesting that you said that, you kind of got caught in that world and in a way it stopped you from doing other things. But sort of retrospectively, you worked with one of the greatest, as you say, living playwrights at the time.
I did, yeah. It'd be kind of crazy to regret it. I suppose I could have probably gone to, LA and worked in films or something like that. But yeah, certainly one of the greatest contributions of drama in our lifetime. And Yes, and he was also a great friend. I mean, a tremendously loyal, incredibly interesting, politically fiery, volatile friend. I mean, he was extraordinary force in my life, no doubt about it. A sort of fatherly force.
Where did you grow up?
I said to him at one point, I said, well, I should be doing some movies. Colin Firth's off doing a movie now. He went, films never happen. And he was sort of right. If you're an actor, you kind of think, well, Harold's just offered me, The Caretaker with Michael Gambon, or I am up for this other thing, that they've moved the dates back, and apparently they now want someone who's more famous than me, and so and then you end up not getting it anyway. So you're better off just doing the fabulous job that that you can do. So
and you're being valued. The ultimate thing as an actor is this kind of come in for an audition, don't hear from them, oh, I didn't get it, or come back again. But when you work with someone and you've got your team and you're part of the team, you're valued. It's like, yeah, well, there's a part for you. Read that.
Yeah, it's true. Plus, you keep working, I mean, and when we were doing The Caretaker, I'm there on stage every night with someone like Michael Gambon. It's tremendous sort of tradition that I'm stepping into that I adore. And every night you're honing and fixing and trying to improve and trying to do less and trying to do more. And, it's you're constantly sort of learning. But, yeah.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Gillingham,
right,
which is in Kent, in southern England. It's not the greatest place to grow up. My dad works in the dockyards. I was born in Plymouth, and then he moved when I was 5 to Chatham Dockyard, and so we all moved with him. And then the dockyards all closed down, of course, and then he was lucky and sort of commuted to London from Gillingham. But it was a pretty depressed place at that time. Yeah,
what?
I still support Gillingham Football Club, which is I don't think I've ever seen them win.
There's a football club called Gillingham. No, that's interesting.
So rude.
Yeah,
so rude.
So are you into your football?
I bloody am.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the unimportant things in life. That is the most important.
Well, isn't it funny though? I found that interesting in the whole lockdown thing when they stopped football and you realised how important sport was. And
yeah, I think many people realised that they were, these sort of landmarks in the week and things that you look forward to, and also managed to completely and utterly forget about COVID or whatever it is that you're worrying about. Yes, I agree.
And the devaluation of actors and shows and that's gone on and it's incredible. What's the first thing that happened in lockdown? The first question that you got on Facebook: what shall I watch? What shall I watch? What shall I watch on Netflix?
Yeah. I have to say it's very tempting now to shut down the whole of television, film, and Netflix until theatre's brought back, until theatre, well, even if it's not brought back safely, that people are actually funded, and, theatres are kept alive, and the actors who work mainly in theatre. I mean, if you work in theatre now, in Broadway or the West End or in any of the fringe regional theatres, you're seriously on your knees. And then to be told that you're supposed to retrain is extraordinary. But yeah, it's pretty awful.
Yeah. The musical side is huge for you, and I asked a friend of mine. I said I'm going to be interviewing Douglas as anything that you'd ask, and he said something about wigs. And were you writing a musical called The Wigmaker? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Extraordinary. Well, actually, I'm writing a musical now. I'm writing 101 Dalmatians for Regent's Park.
Oh, wow.
And look here, in what's it? That's the piano they've just sent over.
Oh, yeah.
But, yes, when I was... So that I can tell... I'd like to tell this whole story because it's just a fabulously thrilling sort of, for me, not for anyone else, a journey I've been on with it, really. So I've always written songs for people. And I've never had any success. So when I was at RADA, when I left, I was always writing these little numbers for people and writing them for myself and playing little gigs with bands and never getting anywhere. But when I was about 16, I had a contract with EMI to write songs. And because they'd heard me singing in some club or something. And I think I used to just send them off a tape every month, and they never used any of them. And my brother would sometimes say, "That's one of your lines. That's a bit of your song there." And I go, "I don't know if it is, Al. I don't know." Anyway, so nothing ever came of it, but I've always done it. And then when I was at the Donmar, I was associate director at the Donmar with Grandage, and part of my brief was to sort of grow work and to develop things and workshop things. And so I asked if I could to do a workshop on Three Sisters, which they were thinking about doing, and write a sort of folk song for each character. So we had a workshop, and that workshop, of course, at the Donmar, they had these extraordinary, gifted, genius actors of every, the highest level come in and work. And during it, Ashlyn Ditter, who was sort of there as a writer, who was writing the Catherine Tate show, said, "Why don't we just update this and write it as our own musical?" So we did. So we wrote this musical called Meantime, set in an airport, which is sort of vaguely based on Three Sisters, but you'd never know that now. And it was bought by Babani at the Menier and by a guy called Matthew Byam Shaw. And they had this huge workshop, and the band was there, and it was all going on. I thought, gosh, we're going to have a musical on. And then it fell apart completely. And I think the two producers fell out, and the producer was there, as they do at these testing things, and commissioned me and said, would I write a new idea? And I just married Amanda, who's the Wigmaker, my wife. And I'd also been thinking completely independently of this about doing a short film about this Wigmaker I'd met in the NHS, who was making these wigs for these people who were coming in with cancer. And oh my goodness, just one of the toughest jobs I'd ever known. Anyway, so I wrote this musical. It was quite funny because it started off as a sort of verbatim, a bit like chorus line, where people come and sit in the chair and they have a wig made for them and they tell their story. It was a bit that sort of format. The only problem was the only people who needed wigs was sort of, chemo sufferers and things like this. So it was about the most depressing musical you've ever heard of in your life, and nobody would ever want to see it in a million years. And I wrote this whole thing, and I just listened to it and thought, oh, this is just appalling. I can't, there's no way I'd watch it. And suddenly I sort of jettisoned the whole idea. And a guy, James Dacre at Northampton Theatre, Royal and Derngate, came in and backed it. There was a person called Paul Marcus, was the original producer. And I said, what if she's making the wigs and she's not unhappy, she's really beautiful and lovely and making these wigs, and then she shuts the door and all the wigs come to life. And there's like different heads, and there's kind of shaggy one and a balding one for a superstar, and there is one for someone who's having chemo or whatever. But they're these sort of puppet show. Anyway, it was fantastic, and it sort of took off. And they had a massive, fundraising thing for it, and it was about to be done at the Derngate, and we had this gala in the West End, which is probably where your friend saw it. And they sang, I think, 5 or 6 songs from the musical, and I sang one of the numbers too. And the whole point was, all the people in the audience would say, yes, we'd love to see this. And in that audience was Tim Sheeder, who runs Regent's Park Open Air. And he phoned me about a month later and said, okay, I've got the rights to 101 Dalmatians. And of course, 101 Dalmatians is set in Regent's Park. The whole place, things happens in Primrose Hill. So for years they've been trying to get this, and it turns out that Disney don't have any of the theatre rights to it. They just were sold the film rights. So there'd been various attempts to do it, and he felt the guy who did War Horse was going to do the puppets for the dogs and everything, and myself and 3 other composers had to send in 3 dog songs. And all this team of producers listened, and I got the job. And so I wrote all the music and all the lyrics for the whole show, and we cast it. And last March. We'd done endless workshops like they do with musicals, and we were about to start rehearsals, and COVID happened. And Regis Park shut down, as it did every other theatre. And I think it's nearly sold out, because what they've done is they've kept the tickets that they sold for exactly the same time next year. Mm-hmm. So then we just had to wait a year. So we have this hovering thing. And of course, in that time, the producers have phoned up and said, just try writing another song. It's even funnier if we have another song, different. What about? Why? Uh-huh. I don't know, just we've got time, right? You're just sitting there. So I've ended up, rewriting various things, none of which I think is better, actually. I think all that what we had originally was better. But so we now have this show sort of poised and ready to go, designed and everything worked out and cast. And the cast are all sitting at home. And of course, Regis Park, because it's an open-air theatre, does hold perhaps, a chance to be one of the first theatres in the world to actually have a production where the audience can come every night. And they've already done sort of distance Jesus Christ Superstar. And they did they did a sort of distanced audience and all that sort of thing, open air. But I'm hoping that this summer it'll open properly and it'll be theatre will reignite. And God knows what they'll think of the songs. It would be terrifying. But so it's become a massive part of my life, yeah.
Have you done, is there a cast recording that's been done then?
No, there's workshop recordings, and there's a whole slew of recordings of me singing songs.
Right.
But no, we couldn't. I suppose you never do the cast album until the week after you've opened. And historically, that's what happens.
I was reading about another production that they've recorded. They recorded the cast recording, and what was it? It was some.
While they've been in COVID.
Yeah, they did the cast recording as a teaser to the whole show. Oh, it might come back.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah,
it's the way they used to do it. The sort of old Cats, Evita, Jesus Christ Superstar blueprint was that you had, Julie Covington singing these hits and they'd go into the charts and the album would have massive sales and then they'd put the music on. And I would love to do that with this. But, then you also have to have remote conditions that everyone can work in, which is possible. You also have all the money up front and all the rest of it to make the album. But
Cinderella.
At the moment, oh, right.
Lloyd Webber.
Which is Webber, of course. Yeah, it was, and with unlimited funds.
Right.
And it's his music.
Yeah.
I don't have those funds, I'm afraid.
Can you play anything now? Could you tinkle a teaser?
Can you see?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I can. Is this up?
Exclusive. Yeah.
Oh God, this is a bit. Long time ago, I lost something so dear. In the blink of an eye, it's gone. The family that I held so near, they were hand, and there was none. This is a song sung by one of the stray dogs in Regent's Park who's lost his owners. And anyway, that's it. There you are.
We've got time to do the whole musical. Well, that sounds brilliant. I mean, that's going to be fantastic. I'll come back. Fun. I'm coming back. That's it. I'm coming back for that.
Hopefully in June, July, I think it is, it opens. So, yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
Fingers crossed.
So, you went on. So the Cage Aux Folles, which obviously is massive in your life and a really important show for you, I think, if I'm not putting words in your mouth, but it clearly is. You won the Tony for that. And there's a wonderful, I watched your acceptance speech, and my favorite bit, I love Kelsey Grammer anyway. I mean, Frasier and Cheers.
Yeah, incredible guy.
And I bumped into him in LA one day at a coffee shop, and I'm standing there. It was one of those moments where the child in you takes over or wants to take over. And I'm standing and I was fiddling with change, and he went, are you waiting? And I went, oh, no, go in front. It's fine. And he went, oh, okay. And my instinct wanted to just run over to him and hug him. That's what I really wanted to do, but I kept cool and and have a picture and all. And I was like, yeah, no, fine, because it was Frasier. I love Frasier. But you had this wonderful line in your acceptance speech. I think it was something of the this was the only time a Republican and a Democrat kiss each other or hug each other.
That's right. Gosh, yes.
I thought that was.
If you want to see a Democrat kissing a Republican, come to the Long Acre Theatre and watch Cage Aux Folles. Yeah. Well, he is a Republican, staggeringly and heartbreakingly so, because he is the most. There we were in a musical that, you talk about Sondheim, but this was truly changed people's lives, I think, and extremely political. And we kissed every night on stage, and before gay marriage was legalized, and it was, people cheered and roared, and I had letters every day from people who were coming out to their parents, and it was an extraordinarily moving and emotional piece to be in, and he was right at the center of it. And but he is a Republican, yes, staggeringly so, and I assume he's voting for Trump, which is sort of mind-boggling. But
or maybe not. Maybe not. There's a lot who aren't.
No, yeah. It's interesting because he has such sort of empathetic tendencies that yes, he's a big businessman. He owns all sorts of companies. I think he was earning $1 million an episode for Frasier, I don't know what he earned for Cheers and all the rest of it. But so he is, a businessman and an impresario and all those things. But he also looks out, I don't know, it just some of his sort of ideas about Islam was staggering to me and seemed out of character. But he had this. Do you know his story at all? He has a
little bit
extraordinary tragedy in his life. His father was assassinated. He was a radio DJ. So that was the first thing that happened to him. I don't think he was living with him at the time, but that was staggering. And then his sister, I think, was raped and murdered by two men in New York. And you could easily understand how someone believes in the death penalty, after that. And so I think those massive tragedies in his life also formed a sort of real tough, harder political view about where the threat is and who are the threat and how they should be contained, and those sort of things that you don't often hear from people in the arts. Mm-hmm. And we had many a sort of robust conversation about it, and then agreed that we would just adore each other and never mention our politics again. I'm utterly opposed to the death penalty and believe in tolerance and respect for all religions, and it's staggering that he doesn't really, but I adore him as a person, and he was just fantastic to work with. Most generous actor, and never sort of trying to claim the scene, never trying to upstage anyone. I'd come up with a new idea and he would just run with it. He was extremely open to everything like that, and was, my goodness, so generous to me. I arrived in New York, the entire cast was American. The whole setup was American. I hadn't played on Broadway before. I didn't know anybody. I really didn't know anybody. My family I'd left behind because I was doing 8 shows a week, And he was just every weekend, come out to this place, come to there. Don't go home. Come with me here. Let's eat here. We're all going there. Family are coming out. You come over. Constantly looking after me. And I'll never forget it. Even when we left, he sort of arranged for me to have a job in the TV that I then didn't managed to do because I'd been away from home for so long, and it was, there were various different circumstances, but he was fantastically friendly and paternal to me. It was just phenomenal, really. Another complex man, but yes, I adore him.
I think that's really important, actually. We're not all going to agree. We're all going to have political problems, even when we agree. Even if we're on the same page and we want Biden, for example, which personally I think he's a very flawed candidate, but compared to what exists, I'd take anything. I don't think people are voting for Biden. They're voting for either for Trump or to get rid of Trump. Yeah. I mean, and the problem that the thing that's I'd notice is that it's if you have an opinion that doesn't fit in somebody else's camp, you're suddenly told that you're in the other camp, and you're like, no, I'm not in the other camp. I just happen to believe a little bit about that in that area, and a little bit, and we can disagree. And I just watched John McCain's speech when he gave he didn't win, and he told everybody, I'm standing down, and congratulations to Obama, and they booed when he said Obama, and he went like this: stop it. It was all about coming together as a country. And, John McCain, who was a man I didn't agree with, but had honor.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the person who's doing the rounds at the moment is Bush. I mean, I have no political time for, but when you look at his speech about the majesty of democracy on the night that he lost, and then the letter that he left to Clinton's about loneliness and saying, I will support you 100%. I mean, these are the words of a great statesman, a great thinker, and a person who's tolerating and respecting other people's ideas. And that's exactly what's not happening. To say stop the vote, and also this sort of irrational fury and anger in people's faces is quite frightening. I mean, of course, that's come from somewhere, and it has to be addressed. And even if Trump doesn't get in, there's still 40% of the Americans who feel the same way. And there are people in the White House who feel that way, and they're furious and angry about Obama. But you can't shut down opinions, and put the police on the street and militarize people, and it's just crazy. That's a dictatorship. That's not a democracy. But yeah, I mean, Kelsey is an extraordinary guy. I haven't seen him for a long time. Fabulous time we had in that show, and a wonderful show to be in. I mean, very, very strange. I did it for 2 years of my life because we started at the Menier, and then we did it at in the West End with Sonny Friedman's production, and then I did a year on Broadway too. So I was in my high heels and wig and dossier for a long, long time.
So how many shows a week would you do in that?
Eight shows a week.
And how was that on your voice?
It was really my whole body. I mean, you have to live like a monk. You can't. I stopped. I didn't eat dairy. I mean, when I did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I had the same meal every day for a year. You get into these sort of way, exactly when you're going to run out of fuel in the middle of the evening. You know that you're losing this much weight because you're running around so much. And
everlasting gobstoppers all year. You
have to, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I suppose it's very like playing sport, but except you're playing every single night. And I think I missed 6 shows on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and it was as exhausting, funnily enough, as La Cage. La Cage is a much bigger thing, but there was really, it was difficult vocally because I was being lots of other people, because he is a person, doesn't know who he is really, or doesn't like who he is, sort of born into the wrong body, which is probably a cliche now, but that feeling. And so there was a sense that he was all, sort of searching for it. So I was always sort of messing about with my voice, and singing, and like Judy once, and then Shirley Bassey, and then someone else, and but really the problem with that was the wigs and the high heels and the corsets, which gave me a great sympathy for all the other sex.
And and that the song "I Am What I Am." I mean, what a song! What a powerful, meaningful, time traveling song as well. It kind of cuts through generations, I think. Oh,
it really is as well a sort of anthem for people, no doubt about it. Yeah, and I've sung it so many different places and so many different times, and that show you could feel a sort of palpable sense of, come on, just, really, please, this is how I am. Extraordinary sort of liberation for a voice for people who weren't allowed to sort of speak up, and fantastic. I mean, what an incredible musical.
How did you get that job? How did that come to be?
I was doing. I'd done Guys and Dolls, in which really you don't sing as Nathan. They gave me a sort of Frank Sinatra song, which I sang in it. But really, the truth is, Terry Johnson, I did a new play then at the Royal Court, a Joe Penhall play called Dumb Show. And I was playing sort of Michael Barrymore. It was a very, very good play about entrapment of stars. And Barrymore, there was a sort of, he was caught by the fake sheikh. I don't even remember him.
Yes.
There was a Sun newspaper reporter who appallingly dressed up as a billionaire sheikh and met these superstars, and they filmed them secretly, and they would offer them a bit of cocaine and bring in a prostitute and see if and he ruined a few people's careers, and Barrymore, they managed to entrap in this sort of room and then expose the tapes of him, messing about or whatever. And so it was sort of based on an idea like that. And because I was playing this Barrymore-like entertainer, I sang a bit and I did an impersonation here and did some dancing and that. And Terry was then offered Cage Aux Folles and phoned me up and said, would you want to do this? And this musical. I mean, Terry knew I could sing too. He'd seen me do some gigs and things. So I sort of listened to it, and I just thought it was a magnificent role, fantastic story of a person, and very, 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 very funny. And I said to my father at the time, I'm going to play this woman next. And he said, well, we won't be coming to see that. Huh. And I went, oh, okay, And he said, we've been embarrassed many times, because you do these sex scenes and you're at the school gate the next day, and it is a sort of strange life. And I suppose you've done a lot of theatre, so you end up doing, extraordinary things. And then you're on television in bed with someone or whatever, I don't know. And he went, I think we won't be there for that if it's all in drag. And then during it, we were rehearsing. I contracted pneumonia, and we stopped all rehearsals, and I was radically ill, went home, but Barney, bless him, went, okay, we're just going to stop for 2 weeks and see if you get better. And I did get better, and my dad lived round the corner, and during it he used to come in and sort of pop upstairs. I was still in bed, I never went to hospital, and I'd say, would you do some lines with me? And just put the tape on so I can listen to the CD or whatever. Need to keep learning the music. I need to keep listening to the songs. And they had a sort of plonky version of the tunes and everything, and the harmonies and all that. And slowly he would come to the house, and I'd hear him going as he walked around the house. And then he would run lines with me while I was sort of sitting in the armchair, and he'd go, like this. And he gradually, just thought, this is great fun. And funnily enough, it's a piece about exactly his kind of family, forget the gender or forget any of it's a couple who are in love with each other, who have a child that they're worried about. And it's, it's sort of almost a sitcom scenario that you see endlessly, that he watches on television every night. It was just that I was dressed as a woman, and we were gay. And but I mean, really, it was about morals and kindness and generosity and all the things that he believed in, and dignity, And then by the time I sort of got back and got on, of course, he was concerned. I think I did the first show and I collapsed after I Am What I Am. It's right at the interval, and I came round and I was on oxygen. They got me an oxygen sort of mask. I mean, it was just terrifying, difficult time. And then I gradually got stronger and stronger with every show, and on it went. And he came to see it and just adored it and loved the show. And then the night of the Oliviers, I won the Olivier for it, and they asked me to sing I am what I am at the Olivier's, and he died the night before, and massive heart attack, and I phoned up and went, I'm not singing any fucking thing for anyone, and somebody said, I can't remember who, said maybe he'd be really upset if you didn't do that, and so I went and did it, and in fact it was pretty fabulous, but of course I was immensely aware of that he was never there to see it, and so he was never there to see take it to New York either, which he loved New York. He was always excited about. He was always telling me that anyone can become the president, as we've now found out, and so he missed all that. So there was a sort of sadness to all that. I also took my son, who was 8 at the time, to see it on his own, and sort of plonked him at the back and went, okay, because he always used to come with me and sit in dressing rooms and everything. And we finished the show, and I was driving home, and he was very, very quiet. And I was sort of looked over him, and I said, what do you think then? What do you think of that? And he went, couldn't they find enough women? And I mean, his experience of the nativity play, where he was being cast as a blade of grass at the time or something, it was, bless him. But then, of course, he came and saw Chocolate Factory all the time and loved that.
I remember when Charlie and the Chocolate Factory came out in London, and you were weren't there loads of problems with the elevator at the beginning, and they were loads of technical things. It was all on the news, and it was a smash hit. You couldn't get tickets for love nor money.
Yeah, it seems churlish to talk about things like the elevator, because it was there was 3,000 people a night, 8 shows a week. It was, and Drury Lane is also, they were nearly all children with their families, so when you play an audience like that, it's sort of like moving around in front of you. If you do a Pinter, you're nobody moves, and all you could see is this black mass, and suddenly you'll hear someone go and Harold will come off and go, someone fucking cocked in the middle of my fucking line, and then I did the Globe. I worked at the Globe, where it's like doing a panto where they chant back and everything. And they're very funny. I did Titus Andronicus at the Globe, and I just finished this Pinter. I can't remember which one it was now. Must have been the Caretaker, perhaps. And I was offered Titus, and I went to the Globe, and, the groundlings all stand on the ground. And the first line of Titus is something like, Hail Rome, right? Hail Rome, who's grieving. I can't remember the whole thing. Anyway, I'd chosen to go, Hail Rome! Like that, right? So we came round these drums and tables, and we brought in through all the crowd and everything, and I was, very, very serious. I was playing Titus, and I did it as if he had a constant head shake. Which nearly drove me insane.
Yeah.
Because I would always say, so he'd say, yes. Anyway, I did it, and it came on, and I went, Hail Rome! And the whole audience went, Hail Titus! And I went, oh my God, this is going to be fantastic.
Wow.
And then, of course, it was just so different to the world of Pinter, where people were so irreverent and so terrified they would, cough in the wrong place or laugh in the wrong place. And this was just, fantastic liberation. And then when I did Drury Lane, it was a sort of children. I mean, it was just all children, and the audience just constantly moved. 3 of them would get up and go to the loo, and then 2 others would come back. Some would have some chocolate, and then some would pass something back, and all you could see was this constant moving mass. It's very hard to sort of control or hold their attention. But yeah, there was full of magic tricks, and one was the elevator, which apparently, flew across the top of the audience, and we were miles up singing, what's it called? Pure Imagination. Me and the little lad who played Charlie. We both had harnesses on because we were up in this thing, and this blind, secret arm, I'm sure you'd know all the mechanics of it, extended out, and the audience couldn't see it, and we were right above them, and it went like that, and we were suddenly hanging from our harnesses with the elevator hanging above them, and people in the audience started to scream and clearly thought we were going to crash down and kill them. And there was a intercom in the thing for exactly those sort of problems, I think. And you can hear me going, it's okay, hold my hand, like this, absolutely terrified, talking to this little lad who was like not terrified at all. And it was like, we'll probably get out of this, no problem, it'll be okay. But I honestly was terrified. And I thought we were up there for 10 minutes, but we weren't, apparently. We were about 3 minutes. And then they managed to swing the arm round. They took the audience out. They got at this ladder and they brought us down. And I was absolutely shaking. And, it was apparently somebody had leant on the big button downstairs in the basement that said, push this to freeze the, there was some emergency stop button. And he just stopped us in mid-flight. Poor bastard. And we had to sort of make sure he wasn't sacked at the end, I think, because it was clearly a mistake. But, yeah, we were terrified. It's sad in a way that took over it was an immense, massive production. I think we had a 3-week tech.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you keep your sanity in that?
Well, the hardest thing is it's a week and a half since you've done the first half. You're in the teching the second half, and you got your harness on and everything, and then you realise you haven't really. You're used to running the piece and singing the songs every day, and suddenly you sort of forget it. So it takes a bit to put it back together again. But it was a strange piece. It didn't quite work. The songs weren't quite right. I didn't feel the first half was a little too dark. But it was a wonderful, wonderful role to play. My goodness, and something very different to what I'd done before. So yeah.
What a technical question, really. Line learning and song learning and lyric learning. How do you feel about it? How do you operate? How do you work through your lines when you have a script? And how good are you at retaining?
I'm getting worse at it, of course, as everyone does as they get older. I can remember sort of being so obsessed with something that I wasn't really aware of having learnt it. The hardest thing I find now is if you do a long run, which, of course, if you do musicals, you tend to do 6 months to a year. And then there's a moment when, having learnt it, I mean, learning is just donkey work. You just have to really, really do the boring business of learning it. I mean, I'm learning. It's very hard in television now, when their scripts come incredibly late, often 3 days before you film, and then there's a rewrite on the day. So it's a different, But the hardest thing I find is if you've done 6 months in a musical, it becomes gibberish because you're saying the same lines every night in the same position to the same person, especially if you've got a song where there isn't time for you to go, what is it? And it's gone, So you have to sort of, and there's a moment, I think, when you're on automatic memory, It's exactly the same as driving a car. If you really move to a different part of your brain and think, so I push the clutch down and I move the gear stick and then I rev the accelerator, if you're driving a manual car. And you can forget how to do that. It's lodged, the way you've learned to do it is in an automatic part of your brain, which if you really think about it, will move it out of the automatic part of your brain and into sort of, you have to think about it and think, oh my God, I don't do that anymore. I don't know if you know that feeling, but it's a bit like that. You suddenly think, what's the line? What's the line coming up? What's the line? I should know the line. And if you actually don't think that, you will have the line in your memory. But there's no doubt there's a moment. And then you sort of go through that, and then it all comes back again, and you're fine. You hope.
How, something like The Great, and you're saying you're getting new lines thrown at you. I mean, you can only learn what you can learn as well within a certain time frame, surely. I mean, would you use a cheating way to help?
No, I never have done. I mean, someone like Elle Fanning has the most enormous speeches. I mean, if you look at The Great, she's incredibly huge, long speeches. And in actual fact, on The Great, it's one of those jobs where you have to say exactly the words. You can't paraphrase or rewrite or change anything, a bit like Pinter. But there's a script supervisor saying, you said and there and it's but, and you have to get that right. But she's learning swathes and swathes of dialogue and then, fine with it.
In the best British accent I think I've ever seen an American do on anything.
I couldn't agree more, yeah. And also just delightful. Just roaring with laughter the whole time. No problem with anything. Her and Nick, of course it trickles down. If your two superstars are just, hi everyone, and, and oh my God, and, and so generous and so lovely. It trickles down. You'd have a job trying to be an arse on a set like that because you look so stupid. You couldn't really complain about something because they're not complaining about anything and they're super professional. Nick's got a little bubba, so I think he was using his car journey in to learn his lines. That's nerve-wracking. I can't do that. I have to learn it backwards, forwards, upside down, inside out, every which way but loose, and then I don't worry about it.
And Elle is, I saw, because I'm up to, I think, episode 5 or 6 now. So just
on the Great?
On the Great. So I've just had the when he's ill.
I think it gets better and better and better.
It's fascinating and really original piece, and I saw that Elle is a executive producer on. And she's 21 or something.
Yeah, she is. Like a lot of these sort of LA Hollywood, she's been around a long time, been in film a long time, but she's super professional, and I'm sure we'll see her directing some of it at some point if she sticks with it. It's whether she'd have time, I suppose, because she's in almost every scene. But she is, and it's a real breath of fresh air because it could be very divisive to be amongst all your co-actors and she sees the scripts very early on. She knows what you're doing. She's part of the casting approval.
Wow.
But you would never guess that. What it feels like is you have an advocate on the floor, and if we all go, we're getting the scripts too late, she'll say it. And she's very much on our side, I think. And so there's never a sense that, she's the star and, she knows what's happening and I might, get the boot if I'm no good. She's very, very humble in that way. Interesting. I talked to her about acting, and I think her mother was a tennis coach or something like that. But she talks about this big match temperament, and having a way of, this is when I need to cry on this line. We've got 10 minutes before we wrap, and I mustn't. There isn't time to do 2 takes on this, and she just nails it. And if you have something like that at the front of a big shoot like that, it's fantastic.
Does she stay in accent? Does she stay English?
No, she doesn't.
No.
At all.
Wow. It's impeccable. It's absolutely impeccable.
Yeah. She's, oh my God, straight out. And you're like, yes, of course. Incredible. Yeah, no, she doesn't.
Your character, Velementov, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
He is, so I watched... when I interviewed Nick, I watched his film Warm Bodies. I watched the first episode of The Great. It's great. Warm Bodies.
His accent in that is fantastic.
Yeah, he's just a charming guy. He's a great, versatile actor. I like his journey as well and development. But Velementov, you had me pissing myself after the first. I literally, the stuff where he just beats you up and you take it, and the laugh, there's bits where he'll make a joke, no one laughs, and then he goes, I made this joke, and then everyone has to laugh. And his character is so unlike Nick's character, the Great himself, Peter the Great, is, well, no, not Peter the Great, Peter we don't know what he doesn't know what he is. Exactly.
He's the almost.
But he's actually so unlikable. He really pretty much has no redeeming features. I
guarantee you will like him by the end of the series.
Right, yeah. But he's
job he does.
There's a psychological journey he's being pushed down so
far.
Oh
my goodness, it's extraordinary, yeah.
And your character is this rotund, drunk, red-nosed military leader,
general of all Russian armies,
just who's actually there is this. He's not. He's. It's weird because he's good at what he does, but he's belittled and stopped from being good at what he does. And I think that I'm getting the sense that it's almost like that pushes him over the edge into his drink and his self-hatred and those things, because he's like the
yeah. I mean, I think well, you've got to watch to the end, because I think it gets better and better, and it's a lot of those things are sort of really explored. I think his drinking is that he has an enormously compassionate heart and is a very moral person. And I think every time he goes to bed, he sees these young Russian soldiers who've died on his watch, and he simply can't close his eyes. And I think that, there is a sort of fantastically deep side to him where he's living this sort of horror of the horror of war all the time. I mean, he has, what's called this, post-traumatic stress. And have you seen the episode where they go to war yet, where they're at battle?
It's the one I've just seen, the one where the macaroons.
Yeah.
And he's got no fingers, and they're feeding the macaroons.
Yeah, and that's his normal life, So, plus he's deeply, in lust and really genuinely in love with Catherine.
Right.
So he has this sort of tender heart that he honestly believes that she might look his way, which is kind of preposterous. And yes, there's a sort of comic thing. And one of the greatest comic ideas ever, I think, was Peter Sellers with Cato. The sheer idea of saying, okay, I need to be at the top of my game, so I'm imploring you to attack me at any time, but never tell me when you're going to attack me, because the whole point of this is I need to be ready, and if I know you're going to attack, it doesn't work. And then, not now. It's just fantastic comic idea, because whenever, at any point during the story, Cato can appear and attack him. And there's a certain idea, I think, with Peter and Valentov, where he's just like, I feel like punching someone, and I'm okay, like, you're the Tsar of Russia, and not much I can do about it. So he sort of kicks me in the balls and chases me around the table and beats me up, basically. There was a lot more of that. A lot of it was cut, actually. There's the point where there was one scene where they all set fire to me and roared with laughter. And they didn't, we didn't have time to sort of do it properly and everything. And but yeah, it was a lot of that. It's fantastic writing.
Yeah,
I think. And the next series, which I'm learning right now, in which I have had my fat suit fitting for today, funnily enough.
Okay.
Yeah, just literally today they sent over the old one, and they sent over a new one, and. So the old one is actually full of glass beads and is so heavy. It's like really is like carrying a sack of potatoes around. So this is a sort of super deluxe, lightweight, still looks the same suit, hopefully. But the new writing is fantastic. I think it's better than last season. Great fun.
And it's Tony McNamara.
Yeah.
And he's
the favorite.
And he's writing all of this.
I think he's writing everything, yeah. There is a writer's room, but he seems to be very over it. He's certainly written the first 2 episodes of the new series and wrote all of the last one by 1 or 2, I think.
Do you get Do you get the whole? Have you had the whole new series script, or you just?
No. That's kind of what I was saying. We've got 2 episodes, and we're shooting 10. Right. So and they're writing right now. You're gonna, it'd be great if we had the whole thing before we started. And could learn them if we wanted to or whatever, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
Do you have someone help you run lines and work, or do you do it solo?
No, I'm too embarrassed to. Yeah, no, I don't. It's a very, very private. I literally do it again and again and again and again and again. Simple as that.
Where are you filming it?
3 Mills, which is in the East End.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, which is why I'm in London, and we shoot sort of 2 weeks in Italy, in Caserta, which is just outside Naples, this massive palace. So the exteriors and the big sort of palaces are there, but the rest of it is all built at 3 Mills. We have these huge Russian banqueting rooms and halls and all the rest of it. But the exteriors are shot mainly in Italy, which is where we finished filming last year.
It's on Hulu in the US. Where is it on in the UK? Do you know?
It's on actually Amazon Prime, but I don't know why. It's very difficult for people to know that, but they don't seem to publicize or advertise that at all. It's on Amazon Prime, Stars Plus. So when you are on your Amazon Prime, if you know they have like other channels that you get in with your Prime, so it's paid for. You don't have to pay anything else for it. I don't think. You scroll down, and there on Amazon Prime, you can watch the whole series. It's all there. And then it's on Channel 4 in the UK in January.
Okay, great. Yeah,
but you can get the whole thing now in England on Amazon Prime if you have Amazon Prime, of course.
Yeah.
If you don't have Amazon Prime, it's Channel 4 in January.
Well, you've got to have Amazon Prime. Borat's on Amazon Prime. Well, come on.
It's true. It's true.
It's important. So, I just wanted to touch on a couple of other things. Last night I watched. I'm very disturbed actually, because I watched Black Mirror.
Oh.
And I watched your episode with Rollo
Haynes.
Rollo Haynes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my. So people don't know, Black Mirror is the Twilight Zone, in essence.
Better than that, I think.
Darker. I mean, it's that idea. It's the short story, the little vignette. True. And one of the things I noticed as well, that episode was based on a short story or a story by Penn Jillette.
Yes, yeah.
Which that's interesting. I thought, wow, how this is all perfect. It all connects together beautifully. Wow, this is a character. This is I don't even know where to begin.
No, well, he's the toxic white supremacist, really, I suppose. Yeah, it's a pretty full-on episode. Black Museum you're talking about. I mean, it's, it was interesting because it was also, I mean, Charlie Brooker is just a genius writer. I don't think I've ever gone into a television sort of read-through and looked at the script and thought, this is as good as anything I've been given in theatre. Mm-hmm. You know, and not a word changed, and it was just perfect. The timing, the writing, it was so garrulous, and I mean, what a person, just obnoxious. So yeah, the story is also the story of all the other episodes, because there's a sort of museum of all the artifacts of torture and horror and ideas that have gone wrong as well that he runs. But yeah, what can we say without spoiling it all?
Yeah.
It's a fantastic piece of writing. I mean, it is dark. There's no doubt about it. Very, very dark.
The first protagonist, let's say, the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
His journey, it's horror. But what's fascinating about it is the ideas about technology and what's actually going on are not far-fetched at all. No,
frighteningly so. Yes, I mean, I think there's all sorts of episodes where now they've predicted what is actually happening right now. I mean, it's not that far ahead in the future. Yeah.
It's if you've got a strong stomach and you like it, it's a real. It's a what it was. Yeah, I was not distracted. Let's put it that way. I just sat there like that. It's one of those incredible pieces, and it stands on its own. Fascinating.
Yeah. It's and Letitia Wright, fabulous. It's great piece of writing. Great mad role to play. I mean, really dark. I didn't really speak to her all the way through it because I thought, well, I'm not going to be friends with anyone. I'm just going to be this nasty piece of work. Plus, they sort of talk about learning lines, and that a huge amount of it is voiceover. And so I sort of read it and thought, I'll learn all the scenes, and then we'll probably do the voiceover. And on about 3 days before, the director said, we're going to shoot all the voiceover. and then we'll decide at the end of it what actually is voiceover and what isn't. So suddenly I had to learn the speed of lightning, reams and reams of dialogue. But because he talks, non-stop, and I think I'm really proud of it. I think it's a sort of extraordinary person, a bit like the Joker, kind of like that sort of character, really disenchanted, dark, evil. Yeah.
Which, of course, you were in the Joker. You were Pennyworth.
Alfred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what a film!
Great fun. Oh, fabulous film, isn't it? I mean, it's proper, like Taxi Driver or something. It's a proper movie, and very, very pleased to be offered that. And I just turned up. I shot for 2 days, and Joaquin never came out of character. It was him and the director were just sort of in cahoots and planning the whole thing. It was just I was very jealous of the time and the energy they had and the space they had to make it, and I just wished I was doing more, really. It was just such a delightful atmosphere as an actor to work in. He would try something, they'd go back, they'd refilm it, they'd think about it, he'd take his time, he'd come up with a different idea. They had the time to do all of that, and it was just wonderful sort of respect between the two of them. And it's a fantastic film, I think. I mean, the premise of that, Bruce Wayne, Batman, is the 1%. That switch of perspective is the genius idea behind it, I think. That up on the hill, these 1%ers that we all hear about, whoever they are that have these technology, who could have a Batcave and, design an electric car and go to Mars or whatever, and then from the perspective of this person, I don't know, it's just fantastic. I thought, fantastic piece of writing. Also, because he made The Hangover as the film he made before that. I mean, not a bad kind of Kubrickian range of movie making.
Yeah. And I mean, I suppose Elon Musk is, he is that guy who built a Batcave, took a spaceship.
Yeah, absolutely. With several of them, yeah. No doubt about it. And are they caring about the planet? I mean, of course, from their perspective they are, and they're doing all these marvelous things, but it was a fantastic switch of perspective, I thought, and brilliantly acted. I mean, brilliantly acted.
And you just finished. Have you wrapped Lost in Space?
Yeah, last week. Yeah.
And is that the end of it?
Pardon?
Is that the end of it? Is that, or is it?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's the last one. They're still filming. In fact, they'll be filming till Christmas.
Right. Okay.
So I just came in and did my baddie.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Lost in Space. Actually, I was a bit disappointed that it wasn't going to carry on and on and on.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, maybe it will. I don't know. I think I don't know. Who knows what?
Right. What?
Decisions based on. Yeah, it's a huge thing in Asia. Massive sales in China. It's just fascinating. I think there's some deep fascination with that sort of nuclear Western family. One adopted child and two, and I mean, it's interesting. Anyway.
So to sum up, really, this is what I find. It's the best thing from an outsider's perspective, looking at your body of work. Because you get to play, actually, that being the fundamental word, and the play, it kind of raises its head as we've talked through your career, because with Pinter, the play, but also to play.
It's true, yes, yeah. I mean, I've really always been interested in being somebody else, other than myself. I have no real interest I don't really like being myself even, so I wasn't really ever interested in being myself and being known for that or something. It's really kind of thrilling. It's like Velamentov today, and I put this fat suit on and I thought, there's a whole extraordinary person I'm going to be until July now. who walks in a different way and, pants and breathes, and sleeps and holds himself. And my wife will be like, oh, my God, when are we going to get him out of the house,
Right.
Because clearly there's residual bits of it. Not that but the way you sit and the way you breathe, I don't know, it just gradually pervades you. And then you drop it and you become something else. Who's sort of, flighty and light and whatever. So the noblest thing about acting is putting yourself in other people's shoes, literally, all the time. I think it's a nice thing to do with your life, to kind of go, okay, here's this guy who runs this museum who detests these people. So let me really try and understand who that is and not make a judgment on them and play them. And then there's somebody in a Shakespeare play who, is a hunchback, or this person is a narcissist, or this person is genuinely good, or this person is a torturer. And there's something about the empathy required to constantly be thinking those things through, which is it's a lovely way to keep yourself alive, I think.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's really important, that idea of not judging the character, because the character doesn't believe he's bad, or maybe he does, but a character still has elements of good. A character.
Well, if you take Alban, I mean, in La Cage, there's certainly perhaps he hates himself. His self-esteem is zero. But understanding that and then seeing and then these moments that come in the play where that flips, and he changes and things it's just a very fascinating thing to do.
And you played Cyrano as well.
Oh, I think that's one of the most romantic, marvelous pieces ever made. We were going to bring it to London, and I was already committed to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, so it was just simply impossible time-wise. And of course, Charlie was a year-long contract, so the whole idea of holding it for a year was impossible. But yeah, so it was just fabulous part, that is. I mean, again, fantastically interesting idea of someone who thinks they're so repulsively physically ugly to the other sex, and yet has this massive heart, and therefore, it's just a lovely idea.
Wonderful. Well, I don't know. I think we've covered everything. We've journeyed through film and
you
TV.
Haven't done any card tricks.
Okay, I got to do a card trick for on
You're
camera.
supposed to do the magic part of this, right?
Oh, yeah, I know.
Magic up.
Yeah.
Okay, come on.
Oh God, it's how to make it work on camera. Okay, can always.
Well, we've got to finish off with you rather than me.
Oh my God, keep it simple. All right.
Wow, that's impressive on its own.
That's it. Yeah, just the old.
Wow.
That's all we need to do. That sort of thing. Okay, just so that you can see that they are a mixed bag of cards. I hope they show up there.
Yes, I can see all of that.
Okay, we're trying this in the air. All right, I'm gonna try a.
I'm watching you like a hawk.
All my sleight of hand now will be problematic. All right. Okay, I'm gonna. All right, so I'm gonna try and look away. It's always difficult with all this camera technology and stuff. Okay, so
You've
I'm gonna
probably got another device hidden up your sleeve.
Yeah, everything's stopping in mid-frame, and
Okay,
just say stop.
Stop.
Oh, there. Are you happy with that one, or we can change it? I don't care.
Happy.
Happy. Okay.
Yeah.
The problem with all of this is everything goes out of frame, and then people think you're cheating.
Yeah, well, you clearly are.
I clearly am, because otherwise you wouldn't know.
Like Tommy Cooper at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise you wouldn't know that it was the 5 of diamonds.
What are you doing there with your hand?
Just pulling that one out there. Let me just do this so you can actually see.
That's fantastic.
I know it's so much nicer if it was here, but we'll do it. Just
if you had that 5 of diamonds up your sleeve, in your armpit, the entire interview.
The whole time, it's such a pain. If you snap, you bring it back like that. Look, I'll show you how.
Oh my goodness!
You can literally pop it in there. What you do then is you freeze the camera, you run off, come back in, and then you put the 5 of diamonds
I'm very impressed.
Okay. Yeah, it's easy. It's the 5 of diamonds deck. It's,
I
told you it's all. It makes it easy. Otherwise, you have to do magic and stuff. Oh, sorry, and that one as well. But if you take out the 5 of diamonds and you just shuffle them, they all change. You'll see them change back into different cards. I don't know how this stuff works. Freaks me out every time. A little impromptu magic.
I'm a sucker for it. Fantastic. Prestidigitation.
A bit of prestidigitation, which is always a pleasure to do. I'm looking forward to. Again, it's magic is the best of magic. It's the same as comedy, and it's the same. You want an audience, and you want it there. You want to touch and smell, and you want them breathing down your neck, and you want that. You don't. It's like what you're saying about that social distanced theatre. It's like the energy that
is
bounces.
Yeah.
And we'll be back there soon.
Something about the communion of a group of people in a room, all laughing at the same time, or all gasping at the same time, or all crying at the same time, or breathing at the same time, in rhythm. That is crucial for us, and it'll come back, I'm sure.
Definitely.
Got to come back, yeah.
Well, I'm going to end the podcast there. Thank you so much, Douglas. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, my pleasure. No, lovely to talk to you.
And, I hope to see you in person in the not too distant.
Yes, not too distant being the operative word.
Thanks very much.